Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Deck Check. I've said it once, I've said it a couple of times, the newest mini expansion to Eternal card game, Shadow of the Spire, is filled to the brim with Johnny cards. What's a Johnny card? Well, you might want to read The Perfect Game article on my blog. There should be a link to my blog somewhere in the description of the video, but it is an old MTG term for one of the player types, and a Johnny is someone who wants to make full potential of cards that don't look maybe the hottest on the surface, and he wants to combo out, he wants to OTK, he wants to just take the max out of a card, build a deck around it, etc, etc. So one of those cards from Shadow of the Spire is called the Nightmare Gates. It is, well, you're gonna see in a moment. The Nightmare Gates is a zero-costing triple, it might cost zero, but the influence requirement is just huge and humongous. It is triple justice and triple shadow, but it costs zero. It's a slow spell that says sacrifice a unit to give your relic weapon +5/+5. So although it costs zero, you won't be playing this on turn one because A, the influence requirement, and B, you have to have both a unit in play and a relic weapon in play. And even if you have a relic weapon in play and you make it bigger, usually you have to start attacking opposing units first to get them out of the board. And this is a very high investment, the Nightmare Gates is, because you're sacrificing this card and you're sacrificing a unit to make your relic weapon that you have to have in play bigger. Okay? So for this to be worth anything, you have to either kill 2 units with it, which is possible, or you have to kill your opponent with it, which is also possible. And this is already in the Argenport colors, and we might just leave it at that. We might want to build an Argenport deck around it, or we could add a color. We could add fire, for example, for some weapon searching, etc. But for this experiment, I have just included this in a full Argenport deck. So how this one works is, I started by taking a look at all the relic weapons that are available. And, there were several who were better than others. And, if we included, for example, fire, there would be even more relic weapons to choose from. But 2 did stand out for me, as you can see in the deck list, obviously. The main one, and that is also the half of the namesake of the deck, is called Spectral Scythe. It is a 3-cost double shadow 2/3 relic weapon, which is a reinforced baton stat line, but it's a rare, not a common, so it does have to have something on top of it. And that ability is unblockable. Yes, it is unblockable on a relic weapon. And what that means is you can hit the enemy player even if they have units in play. Okay, so let that sink in. So you're just playing it and you're attacking your opponent for 2. If you're playing this and you're playing Nightmare Gates on it, you have a 7/8 relic weapon with unblockable. So you're attacking your opponent for 7, and that is a lot. So for this deck to work, for this combo to work, you have to have either make Spectral Scythe bigger, or you have to have multiple attacks on the opponent's avatar, also known as face. And there is a card that is going to help you here, and that is called Jadehorn. It is a 3-cost double justice 3/3 Warcry pledge Minotaur, and that pledge sometimes is necessary because this deck is not running any additional seek powers or nothing like that. This is just pure and simple 25 power. But also, summon, you gain 3 armor and your avatar can attack an additional time this turn, so makes your weapon more robust, and you get a second attack. So for example, if you already have a Spectral Scythe in play, or you have a lot of power and you're playing a Spectral Scythe, then you're playing Jadehorn, you're making the Scythe into a 2/6, allowing you for 2 attacks. Then you're sacrificing Jadehorn, playing the Nightmare Gates on your relic weapon. You have, 7/11? That's a decent stat line. You have a 7/11 relic weapon with unblockable that can attack the opponent twice. And, you could play another Jadehorn, attack them once again, or, remember, this also has Corrupted, and that means it leaves a Jadehorn Shade behind, so you can activate the Shade once again once you have 6 power, to attack twice on a turn as well, Or you can sacrifice the Shade to play a second copy of the Nightmare Gates, turning your weapon into a 12-16, with you having 2 attacks, and that is already 24 damage the opponent cannot block, unless they have an ambush unit, or they kill your relic, and then you're just a sad panda. So that is the combo within this deck. But this combo is not that reliable, and it's 24, not 25. So unless the opponent plays a random emblem or gets shot by a blazing salvo of their own, this won't kill them in one turn. But this is a cool basis for the deck, so you have to shoot the opponent once or twice before that, and you have to have a decent situation on the board, but then your Spectral Scythe can just go in and take care of the rest. So that's the base here. The rest is a build-around that enables you to do what I just described more often. So to reduce the variance of you not drawing some combo pieces, let's call them. But also the deck that is around it should have sustainability in and of itself, because if you have a relic weapon, even if it does have a ton of armor, it still can be taken down by opposing units just attacking you. So you have to remember that. So in its base, it's a rather defensive deck, although the curve in here is very low. So let me tell you more about the other cards. I already said that Spectral Scythe is one of the relic weapons that is in this deck. The other one is Heirloom Blade. And Heirloom Blade has recently been buffed by Direwolf. It used to cost 6 with double justice, and it used to be a 3/3 relic weapon, but recently they buffed it to a 4/4. And also this is a very unique ability, saying Heirloom Blade costs 4 less if you sacrifice a unit to play it. So usually, especially that this deck does have a lot of sacrifice fodder, I mean, you are building around a card called Nightmare Gates that wants you to sacrifice a unit. So usually this is a 2 cost and you sacrifice a unit, and it is a 4/4, and if the unit you sacrificed is corrupted and then you play the Nightmare Gates, then you have a 9/9 relic weapon, and you can start smacking your opponent for tons and tons of damage. Another way of making Heirloom Blade into a Spectral Scythe-like weapon is to either give yourself Overwhelm or the weapon Overwhelm with cards such as the Primal Touch, Touch of Wild, give one of your units Overwhelm, then give a unit, weapon, or spell in your hand Overwhelm, but this is a huge build-up. Another one is to play Flame Keeper, but this would also require another color and you having double fire, because this one says you have Overwhelm. Or you could just smack your opponent's units and then attack them. So that also works. So you have those weapons, but you also have to have a means of getting them, of just drawing them, and that is where the deck comes in handy. But let's not skip ahead of ourselves and let's head on over to the units. Now this deck has a couple of 1-cost units because it's running Crownwatch Press Gang, which I'm going to get to later, so it can look for one-offs when it comes to units. But also it is running 4 copies of Reweave, the 2-cost justice spell that says sacrifice a unit to play a unit from your deck with the same cost or less and shift it. And that is why you can see a lot of one-offs in this deck, because I am running a toolbox of sorts, as they call it. So 1 copy of Headhunter, and this is the card I'm currently testing for some semblance of card advantage. I don't believe it is necessary here, and you could just have another 1-drop like Entranced Cultist or Severin Star Reader, or whatever the first iteration of Severin was called, you know, the 1-cost shadow unit, or another Street Urchin. But so far we have this 1-cost Justice 2/1 Gunslinger Minotaur that says pay 2 and twist to play a wanted poster on an enemy unit. And wanted poster is a curse that says when the cursed unit dies, draw 2 cards, and then you're just using your relic weapons to kill those units. 2 copies of Street Urchin, and this is also where those single points of damage can come from. Because for a 1-cost Shadow 1/2 Rogue, this says when the enemy player plays a spell, Street Urchin deals 1 damage to them. But also you can pay 3 and twist this to draw out the top card of the enemy deck, and this is enabling you, or rather me in this case, to have a ton of cool highlights, as you're gonna see later in this video. Next up, we have 3 copies of Auric Reclaimer. I used to run 4, but if you draw it in your initial hand, you're usually not that happy. It is a 2-cost Shadow 2/3 Minotaur with Shift 6, and without Shift it doesn't have any other abilities, but 2 costing 2/3 is still a good defensive unit. But if you shift it for 6, you get to play a relic weapon with the stats equal to the highest stats among relic weapons in your void. And it counts attack and armor separately, so it can get those stats from 2 separate relic weapons. Also, if you are able to reweave this, because you are playing this unit from your deck shifted by sacrificing another unit, you also get to trigger this ability. So if you're reweaving this from your deck, and that is why we have some copies of it here, you are just grabbing your hopefully huge relic weapon from your void. Sorry, not grabbing it. Creating a bandit's flail with stats equal to that one. So if you use it on Spectral Scythe, your weapon does not have unblockable. And it is a 4-costing weapon. So if you Auric Reclaimer an Heirloom Blade, a buffed Heirloom Blade, it costs 4, not 6. So it can be touched with Banish, for example. Next up, we have 4 copies of Blightmoth. Oh, this card has been bane of many a tribal deck since its inclusion in Whispers of the Throne. It is a 2-cost double shadow flying Kirin, a 1/2 unit, that says summon, give an enemy unit and each enemy that shares a type with it -1/-1, but it also has corrupted 3. So it really helps with all those sacrifice effects from the Nightmare Gates and Heirloom Blade and Reweave. So that's very cool. Also just shuts down Yetis and kind of Grenadin and kind of other aggressive decks. And that's cool because, as I said, you're a defensive deck and you need a ton of bodies, and Blightmoth does exactly both of those things. And that is very cool. Next up, we have 1 copy of Unwavering Exorcist. This is a silver bullet of sorts, or a toolbox card of sorts, that you can grab with Reweave. This is a 2-cost Justice 3/2 cleric that says you are immune to damage from night, which usually doesn't come into effect, but it could, for example, kill off your relic weapon, and now it won't. But it is here for the summon ability of Kill an Enemy Curse. Usually you're targeting Permafrost, but it can also target a random Avigraft or something like that. Or the one that is that comes from Vision of Austerity, the Omen of Austerity. So yeah, this does have some uses, but it is very fringe. I am running this instead of 1 copy of Auric Reclaimer because we can grab it with Reweave, and well, it can be very unexpected for sure. But your mileage may vary, and you might want to include a 4th copy of Auric Reclaimer instead of that one. Next up, we have Dizzo, Cabal Racketeer, the small one from Shadow of the Spire, the 3-cost double shadow 1/4 unblockable rogue with summon, saying you may spend power equal to an enemy unit's attack and steal that unit while you have Dizzo. Interesting interaction. If you are targeting an opponent's unit, and if that unit vanishes before this effect takes effect, for example, they bounce it back to their hand or sacrifice it or something like that, you don't spend any power. Also, this is a 1 copy because you can Reweave into Dizzo, you can steal an opposing unit, and remember, Dizzo is shifted, and that means your opponent cannot interact with Dizzo in any way, aside from some harsh rules or global effect, but they cannot target Dizzo. That's the fact. They cannot silence it, target silence it, etc. Also remember that when you're stealing a unit from play, if it's ready, you can attack with it on the same turn. And if you're stealing a unit, you can sacrifice it to the Nightmare Gates, to an Heirloom Blade, etc., etc. So this 1 copy of Dizzo has a lot of uses. You could think about running 2 or 3, but for me, 1 as a silver Reweave bullet is enough. Next up, 4 copies of Hidden Road Smuggler, the 3-cost Argentport 2/2 Merchant with Lifesteal, that on summon allows you to swap a card from a Justice or Shadow card in your market. And given that this market is running a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curve of cards, well, the fast spells of either Condemn or Crescendo won't work, at least in this iteration. And, well, the Lifesteal is still kind of valuable. Next up, 4 copies of Jadehorn. I already told you about this card, but this is one of the centerpieces of an OTK version of this deck, and it is very good. I mean, you also have to remember the shades from this one, from Jadehorn and from Blightmoth, have the same cost as the base unit. So, for example, if your Jade Horn dies, you can reweave the Shade into another Jade Horn. Or you can, if you can play Jade Horn, you can reweave the Jade Horn into a Jade Horn, and then you're left with a Shade which you can reweave into a third Jade Horn, allowing you to have 4 attacks. Why not? Speaking of shiftiness, we have 1 copy of Vishni Lethrite High Blood, the 3-cost double shadow 3/3 flying elf serpent with infiltrate, steal the enemy void, but that's not why it's here. It is here because it has shift 6, play 3 2/1 dark elves. So if you reweave into a Vishni, you're getting a lot of bodies on the ground. You do have to be careful, because if your opponent is playing Shadow and they Blightmoth one of the elves, then you're a sad panda. And, well, this is here just to provide you with a lot of bodies, honestly. So once again, Exorcist, Dizzo, Vishni, silver bullets for you. Next up, 4 copies of Crownwatch Press Gang. Usually for me this is the main source of card advantage in Argenport, because Argenport doesn't have a ton of strictly draw a card or draw 2 cards or draw multiple cards mechanisms. And this is a 4-costing 3/3 Revenge Minotaur Soldier that on summon allows you to draw a 1-cost unit of your choice from your deck. In this case it's Headhunter or Street Urchin. And, well, you're grabbing a free card that you can, for example, later sacrifice to one of your sacrifice effects. Or if you grab Street Urchin, that in turn allows you to draw some cards from your opponent. So this does take a lot of power, but it is rather valuable. Also, it is a 4-cost unit that you can later reweave into something, and it has revenge, so later it comes back, full of vengeance. And last but not least, 1 copy of Vara Vengeance Seeker. Why just 1 copy? Because it's a reweave target once again. It is a 4-cost double shadow 3/3, used to be 3/4, way back. Lifesteal, Scion, nothing can have Aegis. People do forget about that, but nothing can have Aegis. And on summon, the enemy player must choose sacrifice a unit or give Vara +2/+2 and deadly. And this is another reweave interaction some people are still unaware of. But if you... this ability, the enemy player must choose sacrifice a unit or give Vara +2/+2 and deadly. The way this is programmed for your opponent to choose the option of give Vara +2/+2 and deadly is to click on Vara. So they either click on one of their units, sacrificing it, or they click on Vara, making it bigger. But if you reweave and play Vara shifted, if you reweave Crownwatch Press Gang and play Vara shifted, well, then Vara is shifted and the opponent cannot click on it, which means they have to sacrifice one of their units. And it is a very surprising piece of removal, and I have used it on my stream to a very cool effect. Don't remember if it's in one of those games. It probably is not. If not, then I'm gonna tell you later in the last part of the video. Anyway, attachments, I've already talked about them. Nightmare Gates, yes. Reweave, yes. 4 copies of Call the Deck. 2 costing slow shadow spell, draw one of the top 3 cards of your deck, put the rest on the bottom. This is not card advantage, this is card filtering, akin to strategize but in a different way. Because this allows you to dig deeper into your deck for combo pieces. So Call the Deck is the almost, what was that card name from Visions in Magic the Gathering? I forgot. It was a look at Impulse. It was look at the top 4 cards of your deck. And it was a fast spell or an instant in that case. This only allows you to look through 3 cards, but it is still good to for you to be able to find your combo pieces of the Nightmare Gate or a Spectral Scythe or a Jade Horn or a Reweave, etc., or one of the copies of Slay, because this is the only non-relic weapon and non-Vara and non-Dizzo removal here. It is a 3-cost Argenport spell that says kill a unit, and that's it. I chose this over Desecrate because, well, we can play it, we don't have to, this doesn't have to be fast, and us dealing 3 damage to ourselves means our relic weapons die. And this is here because it's universal. It could be Annihilate, but Annihilate doesn't kill everything. It could be Suffocate, but Suffocate doesn't kill everything, so I just went for something that does indeed kill everything. Now, as far as the power base goes, this is half and half. almost half and half between Justice and Shadow. It is running all 16 dual powers because, well, you do need triple Justice and triple Shadow to be able to cast the Nightmare Gates. And the Justice and Shadow sigil split here is, well, it could be 5 and 4. I mean, it was at one point 8 and 1 or even 9 and 0 because I was running Star Eater Severance here. But given the fact that, well, it is almost half and half if you look at the faction breakdown, but I want to be able to cast Blightmoth reliably on turn 2 against aggressive decks to shut down the opposition. And we have a lot more, well, not a lot more, but we do have some more double Shadows than double Justices. So that is why it's here. Also, we have another triple Shadow in the market. And let's talk about the market now, because this is a piece de résistance of the whole deck, if I have to be honest. So what we do have here is one copy of Remembrance. This is a reweave sort of a card, good for mid-game, because this allows you to play a unit from your Void with cost 3 or less and shift it. It does not combo with Vara, but it allows you to proc an Auric Reclaimer, or a Dizzo, or a Jadehorn, or a Vishni. It only doesn't allow you to go for Vara or Crownwatch Pressgang, but other than that, it costs 1. So you're playing your Smuggler for 3, you're playing Remembrance for 1, and you usually have a huge effect of either getting a huge relic weapon, or if you have some access power, stealing an opposing unit, or allowing you to have another attack, or filling your board with some elves that can attack and or block later on. Next up, the Cassandrith pick of the deck is Illicit Armament, the 2-costing Shadow spell that gives your relic weapon +4/+2. So this is your backup copy of the Nightmare Gate. So if you want to go for an OTK, but you did not draw your Nightmare Gates, but you did have your Hidden Road Smuggler, well, that's another card with a similar effect. Doesn't give +5 attack, but +4 attack. Does cost more than 0 because it costs 2. Has a lower influence requirement, but it achieves almost the same thing. Next up, Pristine Light is the kill spell of choice, a 3-cost double Justice spell that kills each unit with 4 attack or more. And on Onslaught, you get to draw each unit from your Void that died this turn, not only to this effect, but to the attack that was before it. And that is, well, that is what you want. I mean, if opponent has small units, you get rid of them with Blight Moths, with Relic Weapons, etc. If they have big units, Pristine Light, and there you go. Next up, Nullblade. So you do have some Relic Weapons in your main deck, but you also have one in your market, so that you can use it. A 4-costing triple Shadow 5/3 Relic Weapon that says when a unit or weapon goes to the enemy Void, it gets -5/-5, and on summon, it also has that same effect on the whole of your opponent's Void. And this is rather good against some Void recursion decks for weapons and or units. And this is here instead of Adjudicator's Gavel, because it's Adjudicator's Gavel that actually does something, and it does work well with the main theme of the deck. And last but certainly not least, we have Tavrod, Auric Broker. The first iteration of this deck of mine included 4 copies of Tavrod main deck. This is a 5-cost double Argenport 5/7 Endurance Minotaur, an amazing stat line. But also, when Tavrod attacks, draw a Minotaur and a weapon from the top 5 cards of your deck, give them +5 attack, and discard the rest. So the main plan for this is for you to be able to grab Jadehorn and Spectral Scythe. This was played on 5, so on turn 6, theoretically, obviously, you have 6 power, and if you attack with Tavrod and grab those 2 cards, so you're playing a 7/3 Spectral Scythe, you're playing Jadehorn, allowing you to attack twice, with a 7/6 Spectral Scythe, so you're dealing 14 damage to your opponent suddenly. And this is also a very good follow-up. It's a very good finisher, and, well, follow-up finisher and card advantage engine. And, well, opponent just has to get rid of Tavrod, otherwise they're just gonna die. I put him in the market because I wanted to lower the power requirement of the main deck. Because if you remember that Heirloom Blade just costs 2 and not 6, this deck's most expensive card costs 4 actually. I mean, sure, you can sacrifice Jadehorn's Shade for 6, you can shift Vishni for 6, you can shift Auric Reclaimer for 6, you can do some other stuff. But in its base, this deck does not require a lot of power. It does require some setup. But taking Tavrot out to the market allows us to A, still have four cards that access Tavrot for us, so Hidden Road Smuggler instead of Tavrot in the main deck, but it also allowed me to lower the power requirement of the main deck. Anyway, this is the deck explanation for Spectral Gates in the Throne format. And, well, how does this one work? Let me show you. Alright, and we have our first game with the Spectral Gates deck. 1 power hand is just not good enough. 3 power hand with some early game stoppage and some card advantage. Yeah, that's a good hand. That's a rather good hand. And some filtering at that. I mean, we don't have a Relic Weapon yet, we don't have a Jade Horn yet, but we are able to draw some cards soon. And I could have gone for Auric Reclaimer to get some tempo going, but in the end I opted to just look for a card. Midnight Gale, okay. That is where a Blightmoth could come in very handy. I mean, playing Jade Horn doesn't accomplish much right now, while playing Blightmoth later allows us to go for Heirloom Blade, and for Heirloom Blade to survive this matchup. Even as a 4/1 weapon, then we can later Jade Horn and have a 4/4 with double attack. But the second Midnight Gale is putting a stop to my plans. Well, we do have a second Blightmoth, and that's what I'm going for right now. And, well, this is going to depend on what the opponent does. If they attack with both, I'm going to double block the 2/2 to kill that one and have one of mine survive, and then I can later use the Shade to sacrifice it to Heirloom Blade and have a 4/4 Relic Weapon. And that's what's happening. So that is my plan right now. They are gaining some health, and will be gaining some health. But okay, second Blightmoth. Now a Blightmoth, sorry, from the opponent's side of the board is a bit threatening, but not as much as one would think. Now, I was thinking here for a moment, and in the end, if I go for an Heirloom Blade, and I think Jade Horn is just much better than the other cards here. If I go for an Heirloom Blade, and that's what I'm going to go, if I kill the 3/3, opponent has 2 flyers and can finish the weapon off. On the other hand, if I kill the 1/4 and then can chump block the 3/3 and just take 1 damage, then later I can get rid of the 3/3 Midnight Gale. So that was my line of thinking here. But the opponent plays Unstable Form on my unit, and, well, I just get a 1/4 and the Relic Weapon dies. So yeah, I could just attack here, and that's what I'm gonna probably do. But I could also just play Grunge Press Gang. In this version I was still running Star Reader Severin, and I was running an Entranced Cultist, those in place of Headhunter and another card. I don't remember which right now. Doesn't change the fact that I just went for the card that is usually could be found here. And that is the Urchin. Opponent is still attacking us. I mean, there's a slow way to go. We still have several turns. So there is some pressure on us, but it's not lethal yet. And if I get 1 more power, then that Auric Reclaimer is going to be very good, because it's going to give us a 4/4 Relic Weapon to finish off Midnight Gale. Also, for each spell the opponent now plays, they get pinged for 1. Blight Pass Smuggler. Okay. Is it a Royal Decree? If yes, then we're royally screwed. No, turn to Seed. Well, that is a problem. That is a problem indeed. Yeah, in this version I was still running Edict of Korosh in the market instead of Illicit Armament. And I mean, both cards are good for what they do. I could play Smuggler, get rid of one of the Jade Horns. And there is a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 discussion going on in the chat right above my head. I remember that one. It all started when the theme of Necro started playing on stream. as it sometimes does. Alright. What to do now? So I have some options, and I was thinking about going Hidden Road Smuggler and just getting rid of the Midnight Gale with Edict of Korosh. Pristine Light doesn't work on that anymore. Has Jadehorn out, Edict in, Gale out. And I could be attacking for 1 if I attacked with 1-4 and a 1-2, and I should have done that. I should have attacked the opponent for 1. That was a small mistake. Felrog the Unseen. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of the Scythe. There was a Seed there as well. And yeah, let's take a card from the opponent. Unstable Form, 2 of them even. Okay. I mean, they could have still an Unstable Form in hand to play on Felrog. But there, I just took this one, went over there for 2, played Unstable Form once again, and found myself with a very good looking 4/6 Waystone Elemental. Now, that is a good upgrade. And remember, all of this from a lowly Blightmoth. Speaking of Blightmoths, Urchin is dead. We are taking 1 damage now. And that little seed is soon growing. And that is also the reason why my opponent is permafreezing not the seed yet. Okay, let's shift this. Let's kill one of the Blightmoths and try to survive. Try to survive another turn with the Bandit's Flail imitating an Heirloom Blade. Because if it survives, we get a Jadehorn, we turn it into a 4/6, and we can start swatting some things. Okay. We gotta chump here. Take 2. Now, if I chump, the thing is, opponent is going to berserk that unit, which means our weapon is dying anyway, whatever happens. So, though I am blocking the 1/4 for 1 turn, I'm still taking 7 damage down to 8. And fortunately, I got another Auric Reclaimer, which I am going to shift once again. This time, once again, getting rid of one of the Blightmoths. So here we go, same plan, another approach. Blocking the 5/2 as so that the weapon survives. And I could go Jadehorn, kill some units over there. I could also reweave the Waystone Elemental. Unfortunately, 2 of my units are shifted, so it costs 3 and not 4, so I cannot grab a Crownwatch Press Gang with it. Doesn't change the fact that I can just get a Jadehorn here, or a Dizzo. And if I get a Dizzo, I could steal their 1 over here, their flyer. I could play Jadehorn and kill both the 1/4 and the 0/1, leaving myself to finish off Felrog next turn. And also remember, if they kill Jadehorn, we still get a Shade, so we can block with that. And yeah, we have a ton of units coming our way. From the shiftiness. So yes, this is a block, and we can use the Shade next turn. Nightmare Gates is a very nice addition here, because I can attack twice here with the relic weapon. But first, Caleb, let's attack first. Okay, I believe I was getting a bit distracted at that point. So let's go for a huge flail. Attack for 9, attack for 9 once again, and suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, we are dealing 1,000,000 damage. Or, I know, 18 at least. And that is going to be it for the game in just a moment. I mean, what can you do against such a huge weapon? Silverblade Menace. You could kill it. Almost. The thing is, we can kill Silverblade Menace, or we could use Blightmoth Shade, but what I am doing is this, and killing that, and just attacking for 2. Now the opponent cannot swing back. We are attacking for a lot of damage next turn, and we can shift Auric Reclaimer once again to grab that huge weapon, because remember, stats survive on that weapon. And yes, this is a victory. Let's head on to game number 2. And we're back for game number 2. Now this is a strange looking hand that I'm redrawing. I mean, you could keep it, but that was just on the brink there. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, a defensive 2, so only if the opponent plays a 1-drop. But it is very keepable. And remember, in this case, to start off on Insignia, I'm going to start off probably on Seat, but you should start off on Insignia, and just in case the opponent starts off with a fire source and place Light Diffuse on you. Just a quick thought. Alright, again, it's just a time source. I'm not running out Blightmoth. It is not necessary for me. Even-handed Golem, sure. Haven't seen that card in a while, honestly. Let's just go for a Jade Horn. Even if we don't use the additional attack, it's still a 3/3 with Warcry, so it is dealing that damage. A second Golem, that means Blightmoth is gonna get its value. So I could Blightmoth, attack, and play Heirloom Blade. Yeah, you're gonna see this. So we are attacking, we are killing these, playing Heirloom Blade, sacrificing Blightmoth, playing Nightmare Gate, sacrificing Blightmoth Shade, and suddenly we have a 9/12 relic weapon. And on turn 4, seemingly out of nowhere, where we killed 2 of the opponent's units and attacked him for a whopping 12 and a Warcry at that. So this is going to be a rather quick game. And obviously, third even-handed Golem in the first 20 cards, because that's what even-handed Golem decks do. They're stacked, I tell you, they are stacked indeed. Alright. Let's kill that. Play Press Gang. I mean, Warcry first, because that 1-drop could be somewhere on top of my deck, but it was not. So I went for a Street Urchin and want to replay that. Just going with my Minotaurs and a Rogue at that, a little Runt Rogue. And that was, once again, a really quick game. This was the Goldfish draw that I wanted to show you. That just shows that this is a defensive deck, but it has a very fast turning gear, so it can go super tempo when a situation such as this arrives. Anyway, that's enough of me talking. Let's head on over to game number 3. Yeah, 1-power hands, even with a pledge, are just not gonna do it for me. Now, this is a triple scythe draw, and it is a strange one. I mean, it is better than a random 6-card hand, but what I am thinking about is whether to pledge Jade Horn on one or not, and yes, I believe this is a good way to start this game, unfortunately. I mean, Jade Horn is a very good card, it is a cornerstone of this deck, but if you cannot play them, then you're just losing. And this one will also allow us to play any further Jade Horns that we draw potentially. So, yes, that is what I'm going to go for, unless I draw a Justice Source. Nope. Well, at least we'll be able to play Hidden Road Smuggler on turn 3. Power Stone. Opponent wants to power up. And there's that green source, and I'm just running out Street Urchin. Traverse Farm. Okay. They take 1 damage now. And I could go for the Smuggler, or I could go for steal a card and attack that. Ooh, now that's a nice card. And I still want to attack the site. I still don't want the opponents to get a Triumphant Stranger in several turns. Magnificent. Supplicate. Sure, but you take 1 damage. Another Power Stone. Okie doke. Oh, that's a second Shadow Source. That's good. Unfortunately, Spectral Scythe is unblockable but cannot attack a site. That honor goes to Hammer of Glory. Right now I'm thinking of on what to take from my market. And the card I'm picking is Pristine Light because I'm guessing opponent went for Grot of Stranger. Or Makar Stranger, I mean, one and the other work. They already did play Reunite. Stranger's Mark is okay, doesn't do anything right now. Makar Stranger steals a card from us. And we have such a strange deck that, for example, if they steal the Nightmare Gates, it doesn't do anything for them. But what they did steal is what you just saw here, Crest of Vengeance. Sure. Proceed. Now if I draw a Blightmoth, I can Blightmoth the 1/1 and kill the 4/2 with the Scythe and attack the site. But that's not what I'm able to do. We still in a Heat's Distillation from the opponent. I also opted to go Entranced Cultist on my 2/2 because right now the 2/2... Oh, and I misclicked. I remember I misclicked. That's supposed to have been an attack, attacking their site. And they play another Stranger, another Grot of Stranger. They are getting a ton of power. Stealing a card from us again, so they stole 2 cards from us this turn. And I just pointed out to Twitch chat that I want them to have just the Nightmare Gates, okay? Because that is not going to do much for the opponent without stealing a weapon as well. And there are just 5 left in the deck, so the probability of that is rather low. Yeah, sure, they're attacking, but remember, they could have stolen a weapon. They could have stolen a Spectral Scythe or an Heirloom Blade or something like that. And that is why I opted not to block the 2/3 or the 4/2 with Grot of Stranger. Just send them this way. And indeed, they did get an Heirloom Blade. So they would have finished my Grot of Stranger off. And right now this is going to be a very interesting turn. But first let's start with attacking the opponent and drawing a card. Or giving the 6/6 quick draw, and then attacking, that's going to be even better. Because if we sacrifice the Shade... No? I didn't go for it? Okay. The card is getting cheaper and we're drawing a card. And they probably want to block with something. Sure. Okay. So I went for Spectral Scythe. Sacrificed the Shade to give Spectral Scythe a buff. Killed their Relic Weapon. Because it's going to survive an attack from the 2/3. and went for Pristine Light, killing off 3 of their units and grabbing my Grot of Stranger back, and grabbing that Entranced Cultist back as well. So we have a 7-8 unblockable relic weapon that's gonna get beaten down to a 7-6. And oh my goodness, opponent is getting a ton of units now. Okay. Alright. So it's trying to kill this off. But we do have a lot of options because we do have a Reweave in hand. So what I am going to do is go for Grot of Stranger. Get a power. We have enough for a Reweave. And we are getting a Jade Horn. So we can attack the opponent twice. And it is a 7-9 relic weapon, so it should survive. Unfortunately, I cannot cast the Nightmare Gates because Jade Horn is shifted. So that is a problem. But even if they kill the relic weapon somehow, next turn I can go Spectral Scythe, unit Nightmare Gates, and attack them for 7 once again. I mean, we are at 26. They have 13 power. They have several units they have taken from their void, like 3 of them or something like that. And they are stealing cards from us as well with Makar Stranger Fueled Madness. So let's just hope they don't get anything nasty. So please, no relic weapons. That would otherwise give you more health, opponent. Grot of Stranger is okay. Triumphant Stranger is okay. Yes, fun and interactive indeed. Now, opponent. What did you steal? And we just got another Traverse Farm. And they're going for a buff for all strangers. And that is going to be exactly 9 damage, exactly what they need to survive this turn. Little do they know I have some more stuff at the ready. And even though they have a full board, they are only at 5 health. And we can play Spectral Scythe. A unit, for example the Shade. Just to show that we can play the Nightmare Gates and attack the opponent for 7. Alright, interesting. And let's go for game number 4. Now for the 4th and last game. And this is a rather interesting hand. We have 3 power. We have a Scout, which does show us another card. We have almost all the influence necessary to play the Nightmare Gates. We have a couple of Reweaves that are going to be rather beneficial as well. And we already have a Relic Weapon, so what else do we need here? Just start off on Crest and even play Auric Reclaimer on 2. Jade Horn. Jade Horn is an amazing pickup. I still want to go for the Minotaur, just to keep the damage going. Alright. Let's attack first. Play Jade Horn. Alright, well, what is that going to be? Permafrost on the Warcrier? Sure, we can reuse him quite soon indeed. So let's start hitting the opponent with the Scythe. I don't need to play the power yet, but I can. Alright, finally, Genev Merchant. First play from the opponent in this game. Yeah, this is going rather slow, but don't worry guys, this is gonna get sped up. And you know what? Let's start by attacking the opponent first. Because then, well, if they block, we just get rid of their Genev Merchant. If they don't, they take 2 more damage. And we're just gonna cut them with the scythe. So let's sacrifice the Jade Horn. Let's grab a Jade Horn. Let's sacrifice Jade Horn Shade. Let's grab a Jade Horn. And we have a 2/12 relic weapon that can attack the opponent 3 times. And cut, cut, cut. And cut! And cat. Play the power as well. Power probably could have stayed in hand. I mean, this is as high as this goes when it comes to the curve in this deck. And fortunately I did both reweaves. and we got another Jade Horn. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a death by 1,000 pokes, or 1,000 cuts, or 1,000 stabs, or 1,000 slices. Man, now I'm just hungry. Anyway, all the Jade Horns in the world. One got sacrificed to bring the other 2. And I'm not playing the frog because, well, I could just draw a merchant. Or death by 1,000 pokes. The throne room. Yeah, they don't have spellcraft for that. Yeah, sure, we're gonna take the 6 damage. This is a 215 unblockable weapon. It's still gonna hold. Even if they kill it, we have another scythe. Turn to seed all the Jade Horns in the world. But yeah, this is going to be the last poke, and sure, another victory for the Spectral Gates. Alright guys, this is going to be it for the games. Let's head on over to the studio and talk a bit about the deck. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed 4 games with the Spectral Gates deck, with small adjustments here or there, but the main idea behind the deck was, I believe, seen by all and witnessed by all. Anyway, I just wanted to say the situation with Vara, Vengeance Seeker. It was not in one of the games that I've shown you, but I did have a situation where I was playing against Winch's Control, and the opponent just played out Big Icaria, you know, the one with Flying, Warcry, 5, Charge, Aegis, etc. So what did I do? I just played a reweave on my Grunge Press Gang, got Vara into play, and well, they had to sacrifice Icaria. So yeah, I believe Vara is necessary for such shenanigans. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the deck and the deck check. I hope you will check the deck out and play with it a bit on the ladder in the coming month, in the coming season, in the coming chapter. And remember, if you are enjoying the show and the content, click on subscribe. Alright, this is going to be it for this deck check. Calebovitsch out. See you next week.